Hey folks, so today I want to go over just a couple ideas of good and bad, and then how it applies to human thinking, and how just the spiritual God nature of the soul, which in my view is everlasting and has been here since the very beginning of time, views good and bad beyond just our human concepts. Just from my experience, my view of being an empath, somebody who's done some channeling, done some meditation, and just had some mystical experiences with near death, where I could see the instance of like people in the ambulance before it had happened, and just their faces were burned into my brain. And then when I was in the experience of being rolled into the ambulance, I could see the same people that I had envisioned previously the night before, just kind of appearing in reality. So I do believe that we live in some form of a simulation or a matrix, or, just, you could even just look at it as like a video game if you want to objectify your experience of life, just reduce it down to the physical manifestation of what the vibrational, energetic world has created over, billions of years, through evolution or some form of materialization through quantum fields. Whatever your view on that, I feel like there's like an experiential of that, and you don't have to be super religious. You don't have to pray to, or you don't have to believe in God or the devil to really connect to what your inner wisdom has for you, and go even beyond some of the conditioning programming of what we're taught to believe, and why we're here, and what is the meaning of purpose, just beyond that. So to start off, I think good is a way to create opposition. It's a way to label things so we know we have some sort of moral compass of what's good and what's bad. But if you look at nature, like there are different species, and part of their hierarchy is just on a food chain of dog eat dog, or maybe like lion eats cheetah, if you want to look at it like that. And even humans are part of that. Like, we like to believe that we didn't come from primates, or that we weren't once a part of the animal kingdom, and in some ways still have the same instincts that were baked in, just reiterated with the modern world overlaid onto our consciousness. Even in religion, like we kind of just like to separate ourselves as like our soul is more important than all these other beautiful forms of being and light, and just that, animals don't have they don't experience sentience, they don't have love, or all these things. Like, we objectify them in that sense. So the idea of good is within the human moral compass, but in the animal kingdom, or within the universe allows polarity between just that for good for one being just could mean like evil or death to another being. And so I don't believe that God discriminates in terms of, binary, this is good and this is bad. If you look at old texts, like I grew up in a Judeo-Christian family, part Irish on one side, Irish Catholic, and then Sephardic Jewish on the other side. There's like a whole strictness to it, in order to, in my view, to impose these laws or rules onto people, so they have to fit within a society, and we have civility and all these great things that do come from that. Good, like, so I'm using the word to even describe in the definition of it. But I think in this quantum, or this higher level perspective, our soul is more of like a blank canvas. And in my experience going through these visions and being guided, I don't think God is necessarily guiding us in the same way that a GPS would to get us to a destination. I think we come here with a soul contract, in essence, that our purpose is embedded within our beingness. And so even if you come here for like a short trip, like you're a baby and then you turn into a miscarriage, or you only live to like a really young age and then you die tragically, I think you're still actualizing your experience of beingness. And even like if you think that, okay, my power of choice could have changed the circumstances and I could have done things for the positivity of good, I think you're overlooking the fact that there's beauty in all life, and no matter what your value is as a human being, it's not attached to the hierarchy that we've labeled and put onto these things. I think we're just a part of this whole oneness of transactional nature, but also beyond that, unconditional experience, love, all these positive things, beauty in torture, beauty in pain, beauty in whatever you've been through. And if you can change the ego-centeredness around that, you can transform trauma, you can transform needing to get revenge or get back at the next person. Our society wants to value us based on our status. You are what you do, you are what other people think of you. Is often taught from a very young age, like you are your grades. Be obedient. You can be controlled by shame, and often parents are taught to use shame as a mechanism to teach kids on how to be a good boy or good girl, or whatever situation that they want to control you, or even like your boss, or all these different things to enforce dominance or superiority. But one of the ways to get beyond that is just to remove these labels of good and evil, or God and the devil, and just see that there's like a universal consciousness, and that if there's spirit and energy within form, that form, even matter, is just vibrating molecules, which at their very essence are not solid by their own nature and their own process. Then you don't have to look at it as necessarily like what you see through your lens is what you get, that you can get to a place of mindfulness and detaching from ego consciousness and that programming to get to a place where you understand that we are a cup of God, or we're an essence of the universe, and it's choosing through us. And so even at that beingness or that purpose of I'm here to serve some sort of contract or some sort of purpose in your eyes or my eyes, I personally have experienced states of meditation where I lose my sense of self in some ways, or I had the near death, which kind of took me to another realm, and I could just see things from this. It almost felt like psychopathic, or what's another way to describe it? Just like this, not essenceless, but just it didn't have like an emotional context to it when I was going through the exact experience of it. And so God in that way, I don't think is discriminatory, or the universe is not discriminatory. And so our definition of good attached to being like only God is only good, I don't think is the truth in my experience in my life. And there are things that are evil from our perspective, horrible things that have happened, and even things that have happened in my life, which I labeled for many years as like, I went through abuse and torture as a very young kid. I think that created a lot of pain, but through that birthed my purpose on how I want to help. Like my mess is my message, and even getting to a place of neutrality with it, like not even seeing it as good or bad, has helped me transcend to not be so attached to having an agenda and allowing this spirit consciousness to flow through me. And through being that state of flow or stillness, you can get to like a state. It's maybe not even understanding or logical analysis. Even some of the labels I'm using now have come afterwards that don't fully paint the picture of getting to those states. That they get us closer to the combination of the co-creation of our human form with our spirit form, which is connected to all that is, in unison with everything else. And so treating somebody as the bad guy or the good guy creates division, creates resistance. And what if all of these like yogic masters, or even Jesus, or even some of these great teachers throughout the many years and decades and eons of being around, it's just a sense, like even just learning from the formation of nature and the beauty in all things of geometric patterns in plants and flowers and all that kind of thing, of order, of perfect order within chaos. Just really talks about this, getting to this level of detachment from your own personal experience, and realizing how small we are as an individual, but that we're also connected to this larger thing that's running the show. Like there was this really great quote, I'm not sure if it was from Carl Sagan, but paraphrasing, just we're the spear carrier in a much larger drama. So on the one hand, we have our own perspective that I am choosing through my identity, and that forms almost as like a coping mechanism to be able to produce distinct results, reliable things in my life. And so I do believe you can like just live a life that's very measured, and where it's hustle and grind, and you do things only for the benefit of creating an exact result. But in doing so, sometimes I think you get away from the creativity of just being, and allowing that beingness to be your guiding force to be able to create miracles in your life. Whereas if you create a life that's very small or predictable, or you control every variable like a control freak, or maybe you're like you're a personality of like someone who's like a lawyer, and you want to know every circumstance that could possibly happen and be able to control it to your favor, then I think you miss out on the dance of moving with other beings in this whole thing. And no matter what happens to us and to everybody else, everything is temporary. And no matter what legacy you bring, you leave behind, we're still a part of this grand play that's just ever producing. And so that detachment from the result can actually help you access this deeper level of understanding, love, learning, all these positive things that I think transcend just the pure labels of good and bad, and needing to control every aspect. But then also I do feel like there is some sort of aspect of acquiring wealth, or acquiring the things that you do want through using this as a superpower, but just not as an isolated thing. I think it's good to have goals, to go after what you want, to live as a human being, to be in the body, to not completely reject reality as you see it, but to also understand the ambiguity of that. There's also the great beyond that we're a part of, and we don't have to buy into our own story all of the time. And maybe even that story was given to us by our higher power, by nature, as a way to cope effectively, or even just through evolution, that we have these mechanisms just to be able to stop whatever threat that comes our way, and then get to the point where we reach self-actualization and then die, if we survive long enough to be able to do that. But even that, I feel like, is just not the effective way to get to this state of non-resistance. And for me, the purpose of beingness is that our purpose lies where we're at, where we are placed to prosper, in the words of the Bible, to prosper where we are planted, and not try to ask to be delivered from these circumstances, but instead learn the lesson, or take away some sort of value from whatever is happening, so that you can create happiness as a choice. And that happiness is not a pathway but it's not, there's not like a way to happiness is what I'm trying to say, but that happiness itself is the way, through gaining neutrality to things that we don't like, and then through cultivating a practice of the things that we want to create, but then also just not getting to that place as a defense mechanism, but more as a co-creator, understanding that there's something greater than just our understanding of this whole thing, and that circumstances can become almost serendipitous to like whatever we envision, we create. And so if you have the label of, okay, this person at the workplace that I don't like is always going to keep on doing this, then we're not looking at our part to change our ability to change our state. And then that might even change the dynamic and change the way that they treat us. As that maybe like a lot of the things that we attract in our life are a result of who we are and what we are. But not in a way of like, you have to put a dollar amount on your life or on your job as it mostly does to you. I think you can break beyond that as you get to these higher states of meditation and get a level of like powerful states versus primal states, which is all about survival, protecting the self. But as you get to these more powerful, less defensive states, barring that you're within an environment that is safe, and hopefully you're in a first world country, or you have your needs met to a basic level, then you can kind of just go into these practices that create even more wellness in the body. And as you do that, then as you are inside, so shall the world manifest around you in such a way, and not necessarily in such a calculated way of, I'm just trying to build my business and get the numbers and the metrics just right so I can build and scale this thing. I feel like the quantum leap can come through trust, through just wanting to love all beings, no matter how toxic you may view them or torturous the situation might seem. That we transcend through states of peace, neutrality, higher vibrations, and ultimately let going the narrative as it pops up, has been really helpful to me. And then also it helps to have these experiences where you ask the universe, or you ask God to reveal itself through signs and synchronicities, and eventually it'll show up for you if you have that sense. So I wish you guys the best of everything, and hope that this helped. This message helped to bring hope and positive change in your life. Just to not see good and bad as like necessarily a binary thing. I wish you well. Thanks.